In this first example, the engine had to stop approximately 300 feet from the front of the fire building due to cars blocking the long driveway. The officer opted to pull 400 feet of inch 3/4, 300 to make it to the front door, with 100 left over for the interior attack. With 400 feet of inch 3/4 on the ground, you're going to have approximately 120 psi of friction loss, with a pump discharge pressure of 220 psi. If you remember, our pumps are rated for approximately 1,250 gallons per minute at 150 psi. When you start to increase the psi, the pump loses its efficiency rather quickly. At 200 psi, our pumps are now rated to about 875 gallons per minute, and at 250 psi, which we're not far from in this example, the pump is only rated to 600 gallons per minute. This being said, if we start to add more attack lines to this engine, it will quickly be maxed out. In the second example, the first two engine officer orders his crew to advance 300 feet of 2.5 inch line with a smoothbore tip to the front door of the fire building. Once they reach the front door, the pump operator can then break the 2.5 at the nearest coupling and attach it to a discharge. The first two engine officer brings a length of inch 3/4 line to the front of the building to act as the interior attack line. While this is going on, the 2.5 could have been charged, and the firefighters at the tip could have begun hitting the fire from the exterior if they had fire out of multiple windows or fire auto-extending up the side of the building, or any potential exposure issues. Once the inch 3/4 reaches the front of the building, the 2.5 can be shut down, the tip unscrewed, and the inch 3/4 attached to the threads in front of the 2.5 bail. Once the inch 3/4 is attached to the 2.5, the bail can then be opened, secured, the inch 3/4 line is now charged, and the engine company can make their interior attack.
So the two firefighters on the back step, they're going to come to the back of the piece. They're going to grab the 2.5 from the bed that has the 600 feet of 2.5. Grab the nozzle. Grab at least a few flakes. Control the nozzle. Start walking up to the house. Now you can stop right here, and then the next firefighter could grab a couple more flakes and they can follow you up. It is dry line. You can drop it, and it's going to be pretty easy to drag. We drop the line, the bail is shut, we can ask for the line to be charged. All right, at this point, the hose team has brought enough hose to the front of the building, so the pump operator can break this line and attach it to a discharge of their choosing. There's going to be a 2.5 on the back of all of our engines, 2.5 discharge that they could connect to, or they could connect to a discharge on the pump panel side. We'll do that here. Since there's a bail on the end of this line, we can charge it before they're fully set up and before they've even attached the inch 3/4 attack line to the end of it. All right, so while the firefighters are grabbing the 2.5 and bringing it to the front of the building, the officer can come over to the cross lay. I'm gonna grab the 150 in this instance. Control the nozzle. There's no need to flip the load like you would normally on a flat lay. Clear the bed, and then the engineer or the pump operator can disconnect the cross lay from the little leader section we have connected to the piping. All right. The engineer can drop that, and the officer can go and meet the firefighters at the front of the building. So at this point, our attack line is dropped near the tip of the 2.5. If we had fire blowing out of multiple windows or fire auto extending up the side of the building, the firefighter that was left on the 2.5 could be hitting it from the exterior. But at this point, we've determined we want to make an interior attack. So we shut down this line and we remove the tip. We attach our inch 3/4 to the end of our 2.5. And then we flake out our line so that we're good to go. We bring our last coupling to the front door. So that the hose team's ready to advance inside. Now we're ready to charge the 1 3/4 attack line. The line gets charged, and there's one last thing we want to do. Everybody should have been issued webbing. Mine has a carabiner attached to it. I'm going to clip the carabiner to it, and then I'm just going to wrap the charge 2.5. There's really no right or wrong way to do this. I don't want you to get stressed out about tying the right knot or whatnot. Just do a bunch of wraps, overhand knot, just something to ensure that this bail is not going to get shut while we have companies operating inside. And this is enough to ensure that. That's it.